Shalom, shalom, shalak, everybody. We're gonna wait a couple of minutes for Cap to come in. All right. If he don't come in like 5 more minutes, I want to start a class. Oh yeah, and if you got any questions in the chat for me, if you got any questions in the chat. We're gonna give Cap like 2 more minutes. 2 more minutes. Shalom, Yahweh, Shabbat. Hey, Lutak, you got your sword on you?
Come on. I'm just trying to find my headphones real quick.
All right. Just go ahead and put your phone on mute.
Oh, there we go.
Put your phone on mute.
Put it on mute.
Yeah. There's a little microphone on the bottom of the screen. Just tap that. There we go. And if anybody has any questions, type them on into the chat. Shalom, shalom, man. All right, most high in Christ, man. Put that work in. Nothing wrong with that, man. All right, no questions on deck. All right, so what should I get into? I ain't gonna touch caps. You know what I'm saying? Topic. You know what I'm saying? So when Cap comes in, he just gonna come in. He gonna do his thing. So I just want to hit on some milk scriptures. I want to hit some milk scriptures real quick. You know what I'm saying? Since there's no questions and everybody in here knows the Bible like that. You know what I'm saying? Everybody knows the Bible. That's a good thing. Maybe y'all should be up here, teaching me something because I don't know everything. But let's keep it simple. We're gonna go on some. Let's talk about division and unity. You know what I'm saying? Everybody likes to think that the Most High is all about unity and loving everybody. You know what I'm saying? That's what the Most High is about. Salaki, everybody, caps in the building. You know what I'm saying? Shalom, sir. Yahweh Hashem, Yahweh Shabbat, sir. Cap must be having a little bit of difficulty, so I'm about to get with it. Hey, true. Get Genesis 11, 1, 11 and 1. Get Genesis 11 and 1. We're going to talk about, is the Most High really about unity? Is he about everybody loving each other? You know, that whole
Hey,
if
Salaki, y'all can hear me
going on.
now?
Oh, Khan out on Khan.
All right, give me
Come.
give me 2 seconds. We're gonna get started with the topic of the room. I'm having a little bit of technical difficulties on my end. All right.
Khan out on Khan, sir.
Come.
All right. So if anybody has any questions on the topic about Ruth, you know what I'm saying, we're going to get into Ruth because there's a lot of confusion about Ruth going on in the world. Is she a is she a Moabite or is she an Israelite? You know what I'm saying? And the only people that know the truth about it seems to be the brothers and sisters of the I.S.U.P.K. We know that was a sister of the school. We're gonna have Cap get into it when he is available too. So if you got any questions on that, type them in the room. Type them in the chat or raise your hand. If you want to voice your question, you can raise your hand also. I'll bring you on up.
All right, I'm gonna have to just run this from Clubhouse alone. Usually we simul stream onto YouTube and Facebook as well. Having some technical difficulties this morning, but moving forward, this class was originally on Wednesday 7 to 9. We're gonna go ahead and shift it over to Sundays 12 to 2. So today's topic is on Ruth and that she is an Israelite. So a couple of things that I want to do is the first most important thing that brothers and sisters need to know is do not forget what you know, trying to learn something new. And you're going to find Christianity is about loving your oppressor. So everything about Christianity is love your oppressor, save your oppressor. You understand? Like it's loving Edomites is coming out of the walls. You understand? For those of you who don't know, Edomites are the so-called white man. All right, the entire Caucasian race. So everything inside Christianity is getting you to try to love them. So they'll try to find certain scriptures like Ruth or Cornelius or something and try to attribute them to being a non-Israelite so that this way their slave master can be saved. So remember, don't forget what you know, trying to learn something new. So one of the things that I want to do is just go over some milk scriptures because the Bible does not contradict itself. So if you have these basic scriptures in your mind, When somebody tries to come to you to confuse you, you understand, you'll at least, even if you've never heard it before, have a defense in your mind. So first, give me Amos 3. Start at 3 and 1. So I want y'all to be able to embed these in your head before we get into the breakdown on Ruth. All right. We're gonna go through pretty much the whole book of Ruth, the history, you understand, in Israel, and to show you, you understand, that without a shadow of a doubt, that Ruth was an Israelite. Rock on the Thok, one of y'all, whichever one of y'all got it, read it first.
Salakia. Amos 3-1, right, sir?
Correct.
All right, come on, come on. Amos 3-1. Hear this word that the Lord has spoken against you, O children of Israel, against the whole family which I brought up from the land of Egypt, saying, you only have I known all of the families of the earth.
You only have I known of all the families of the earth. The Lord does not know or recognize anybody else. When you know these milk scriptures, right? When you have these precepts in your head, it's an excellent defense against anybody who's trying to, you understand, pollute your mind. There's no way that you can now try to attribute any other nation to being dealt with in the same capacity that the Lord has dealt with Israel, because he has not dealt so with any other nation of people. You have to remember that. And this is not an isolated incident. This is all throughout the scriptures. Give me Psalms 147 and 19. Whichever one of you got it, y'all can go to it first. And remember, these are basic scriptures. This is like Israelite 101. You know what I mean? These are the basic, like John 3:16. If you know how to break down, listen, my 8-year-old can break down John 3:16. It's no amazing feat. These are milk. You understand? But you need that milk, because this is what normally cuts everybody. If you've ever watched any battle of us on the streets, it's never anything deep that confounds Christians. It's color scriptures. You understand? It's think not that I am sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. It's the basic scriptures. You ain't got to find the Ark of the Covenant. You just have to know the basics to dismantle Christianity. Whichever one of y'all got it, read it.
Khan Adawan Khan. Psalms chapter 147, verse 19. He showeth his words unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgments unto Israel. Verse 20. He hath not dealt so with any nation, and as for his judgments, they have not known them.
You understand? The Lord ain't dealt so with any other nation. And as for them judgment, he hasn't known them. He only showed his word and his laws onto us. So if that's the case, why would anybody put in their mind that inside our record, inside the Lord's word, there would be a book about a heathen? Does that make any sense if you understand that we are God's chosen people? No, absolutely not. You understand? So y'all want to bury those scriptures into your mind. You understand? Put them deep inside you so that when someone comes up, you say, he has only known us out of all the families of the earth. As for the other nations, he has not known them. Praise ye the Lord. If you can remember that, you will never get confounded. So with that, let's go to Ruth 1 and 1. All right. And let's start there. And then we're going to get into some real history. Now, also, what I advise some of y'all to do is get some maps. You understand? Like look up geography, because that's an extremely important part about understanding the scriptures, is knowing where these stories were taking place. Some of your Bibles might have maps in the back. Some of them might be in color, and it'll be maps of Paul's journey. You know what I'm saying? All the different cities that he went to. It might be the inheritance of Israel before and after the split, sometimes even before they came into the land. And you want to know the geography so that this way you can find out where these stories were taking place. This is also our homeland. All right. Read Ruth 1 and 1 when you got it.
Khan Adawan Khan. Ruth chapter 1, verse 1. Now it came to pass in the days when judges ruled.
Now, this is extremely important. In the days when judges ruled. So when the judges were ruling, you understand, this is a time period. So this means Moses already passed. This means Joshua already passed. This means the nation and land of Israel has already been conquered to certain extents, because in Judges there was certain, you understand, battles that were fought and certain inheritances that still needed to be conquered. But for the most part, we had already crossed into the Jordan at this time. So you have to, don't look at the Bible as if it's all chronological. You get what I'm saying? You have to know at what time everything was going on, because some of these books were written contemporary with each other. You understand? Ruth was written during the time of Judges. So that means after the first five books, after Joshua, but this is before Kings and before Chronicles and before Jeremiah. This is before those major captivities. All right. So you have to know when this story's taking place. Okay.
that there was a famine in the land, and a certain man of Bethlehem, Judah, went to sojourn in the country of Moab, he and his wife and his two sons.
Now, this is extremely important, right? I need y'all to notice it did not say the land of Moab. It said the country of Moab. This is extremely important when it comes down to translation. The land of Moab was the literal land and inheritance of Moab. The country of Moab. Remember, there's a famine, right? So it's like, what do you call the area outside of a major city? You call it the country. That's the rural area. So there was a famine where they went. Bethlehem, Judah was a city, it was a heavy populated area. So they went to the country during the famine because this is where agriculture was. This is very important to understanding where this story took place. So now, with that, what we're going to do is let's go to Numbers, the 21st chapter, and start at verse 4. So what we're going to do is you have to first understand that the country of Moab was in Israel, because this was a, just to give you a broad overview, and you're going to see this. The country of Moab was Mount Moab. This is where Moses died. You understand? This was, you understand, kind of near Jericho on the other side of the Jordan. This is why I say that you need maps, because there was a certain line of inheritance, right? Where you had the Dead Sea and the Arnon River. And the Arnon River was the border of the tribe of Reuben and the tribe of Moab. And Israel went all the way up to Mount Hermon. And that was, you understand, on the east side of the Jordan River. So this is extremely important to know where these stories are actually taking place. See, at one time, Moab's borders used to be way larger, but Moab went to war with a Hamitic tribe known as the Amorites, not to be confused with the Ammonites. The Amorites was an African tribe that they had all of this land. This was one of those nations that we had to go and conquer. Remember the Jebusites, the Perizzites, the Amorites, you know what I'm saying? These were all Hamitic nations that we had to fight inside the land of Canaan to make it Israel. That land that at one time belonged to Moab was conquered by the Amorites. Israel came in and conquered the Amorites, but it was still called the Plains of Moab because that's who it used to belong to. Now remember, plains is a countryside. Country and plains are synonymous. So when we're talking about the Plains of Moab, we're actually talking about this land that was now conquered by Israel that at one time belonged to Moab. All right. And we're going to show this all throughout the scriptures right now. So we're going to get into that history of how Israel conquered these lands, how they came in here, and showing that Ruth and this story took place in the time of Judges in a rural area that was in Israel, in the inheritance of Reuben, that once upon a time belonged to Moab, but now belongs to us because we conquered that land. All right. So let's get Numbers 21 and verse 4. And once again, if anybody has a question, you know what I'm saying, or if y'all want to raise your hand and come up, y'all can either type it in the chat or y'all more than welcome to come on stage. This is an interactive class, all right?
Salakia, sir. I have a question. Like, do you hear that noise in the background?
It might be me.
Like music?
I could I don't hear any music, but I can mute my mic if I'm not speaking or reading. All right. And then if anybody has a question, just unmute, say Salakia, and then we'll deal with your question. Make sure it's on topic though. All right.
Hey, Salakia.
Hey,
Shalom.
hey, Shalom Hebrew. You got a question?
Yeah, real quick. I just came on Clubhouse and saw this, but I wanted to see the maps and stuff. Is this live on YouTube so I can see the actual maps?
Okay, no. Maybe what I'll do is maybe at a later time I'll teach it again with the maps. I have we had some technical difficulties this morning, so I'm strictly teaching this class on Clubhouse for today. You know what
Okay,
I'm saying? But what you can do is while I'm naming these places, go on Google and type them in, and you'll see maps of ancient Israel. And they'll pop in your Google search, and you'll be able to see these different points of inheritance. So, you know what I'm saying? Like the best that I'd be able to do is maybe PTR them, but even that won't do it justice. You know what I'm saying? So bear with me for the day. But a lot of this will be you know what I'm saying, like a little bit long-winded as far as the scriptures, because we have a lot of verses to go through. All right.
Con. I will say this real quick. I this topic has always been a question mark for me because I could never understand why the Most High would have Yahushua born in the lineage of a heathen. And so to me, it actually makes more sense and fits everything perfect with the Bible. So all praise the Most High for the subject matter. But I
No,
yield though. I can watch this, brother.
damn right. Nah, no sweat. You know what I'm saying? If you want to stay up here, that's fine. If anybody else wants to come up, if you have a question, that's fine. So as of right now, if you want to join us in reading, we're at Numbers, the 21st chapter and verse 4.
Khan on Khan. Numbers chapter 21, verse 4. And they journeyed from Mount Or by the way of the Red Sea to compass the land of Edom. And the soul of the people was much discouraged because of the way.
So now this was a long journey. You understand? So what happens is that we had to go around Edom in order to get into our land. So if you were able to go and look at the inheritance, Edom was all the way in the south. Right above Edom, you understand, there was a river that cut off the border between Edom and Moab. And then from that river all the way up to the Arnon River was Moab. And then from the Arnon River up was the land that we were going to conquer. You understand? And then east of that was the land of Ammon. So these were the nations that bordered Israel at the time. So right now we had a long journey from Mount Hor, you understand, all the way, you understand, by the way of the Red Sea. And now we're going around the land. All right, read on.
Khan on Khan. 5. And the people spake against God and against Moses. Wherefore have ye brought us up out of out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? For there is no bread, neither is there any water, and our soul loatheth this light bread.
You understand? So now they're complaining because, you understand, they were tired of eating manna. They were tired of eating quail. You know what I'm saying? Like, so what happens is that because of their complaint, you understand, the Lord is now going to plague them. But this is important because it tells you where Israel is. I'm going to try to PTR these so you could kind of see the route that they took going in. So I found a map here. I'm going to try to screenshot it and then send it so you could see the whole way. So you could continue reading the next verse, and I'm going to try to PTR that for anybody who's listening.
Khan Adawan Khan. 6. And the Lord sent fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people, and much people of Israel died. Therefore, 7. Therefore the people came to Moses and said, We have sinned, for we have spoken against the Lord and against thee. Pray unto the Lord that he take away the serpents from us. And Moses prayed for the people.
So now, if you this is actually a very famous story inside of Israel where we complained so much, so the Lord started to plague us with these serpents. Now, if y'all PTR right, and hold on, it was supposed to reset, so let's do this here. Boom, done. All right, so if y'all PTR now, right, what you're going to see is the route that we took in. So we came out, we're in the south of Edom, and now we started to go around Edom and up. So right now we're in our travels around Edom and going up past Moab. So this is currently where the story's taking place right now. This is how we entered into the promised land. Read on.
Khan out of one Khan. 8. And the Lord said unto Moses, make thee a fiery serpent, and set it upon a pole, and it shall come to pass that every one that is bitten, when he looketh upon it, shall live. 9. And Moses made a serpent of brass, and put it upon a pole, and it came to pass that if a serpent had bitten any man, when he beheld the serpent of brass, he lived.
You understand? So this was a command from the Lord. And it's not the serpent that did it for us. It was our obedience unto the Lord. When we are obedient unto the Lord, he is with us. You understand? And when we disobey him, he plagues us. Read on.
Oh, Salakia. 10. And the children of Israel set forward and pitched in Oboth. And they journeyed from Oboth and pitched in Ijebarim, in the wilderness which is before Moab, toward the sun rising.
So now what you start to see is that we went around Edom, and this story took place right outside in the wilderness of Moab, right outside their borders. So this is the path that we took in order to get into our land. All right. We went around Edom and around Moab, and we're going to take that all the way up to the Arnon River. All right. So these rivers that was, you know what I'm saying, Moab's inheritance was the Zered River. You understand? It bordered the Dead Sea. You understand? And it went all the way up to the Arnon River. And that was Moab's inheritance. And we weren't permitted to go into their land at the time because it would have been way faster. Fastest point between A and B is a straight line. But they feared us. They were fearful of the children of Israel. So as a result, we had to go around their borders. And while we went around their borders, Israel was complaining. And then the Lord plagued us. All right. So now we're going to continue reading. So drop down to verse 21.
Khan Adawan Khan, verse 21. And Israel sent messengers unto Sihon, king of the Amorites, saying, let me pass through thy land. We will not turn into the fields or into the vineyards. We will, Slakia, we will not drink of the waters of the well, but we will go along by the king's highway until we be passed through thy borders.
So now what happens is that the King's Highway was the King's Highway is like if you know anything about, you know what I'm saying, the East Coast, it's like I-95. You can literally go to Canada on I-95, or you can take it all the way down to the bottom of the Florida Keys. You know what I'm saying? It's a road that literally cuts straight through America. Well, the King's Highway was just that. It was a road that can literally get you straight through this land and take you from the top to the bottom inside Israel. So we attempted to ask for permission, and we said we won't even touch the wells. We're not going to touch any of your resources. It'll just make our journey easier. Read on.
Count out of one kind. Verse 20, verse 23. And Sihon would not suffer Israel to pass through his border. But Sihon gathered all his people together and went out against Israel into the wilderness. And he came to Jahaz and fought against Israel.
So now remember, Jahaz is in the corner, right in between Ammon, the and Moab. All right. So we haven't even entered into the borders yet. So I'm gonna try to take another picture on my PTR so y'all can kind of see the exact border as to where it is. So let me just get that nice and clear. Take that picture. Boom. All right. So if y'all PTR real quick, what y'all be able to see is you have Ammon, which is right above us. All right. The Amorite land, you understand, is straight to the left of us is west. And then in the south is Moab. And below Moab is Edom. So we went around Edom. We passed Moab, and now we're getting ready to try to enter into the land because we wanted to cut through. This way we could go over towards Jericho where the Jordan was. All right. Y'all should be able to see that clear as day. Once again, this was supposed to be on YouTube, but you know what I mean? Like I said, technical difficulties. So for now, we're just rocking out on Clubhouse. All right. So they went and came to fight us at Jahaz, and he fought against Israel. So read verse 24.
Verse 24. And Israel smote him with the edge of the sword, and possessed his land for Arnon unto Jabbok, even unto the children of Ammon. For the border of the children of Ammon was strong.
So now I'm going to take another picture here, right? So that this way y'all can now see these borders that Israel was conquering at this time. And once again, geography is extremely important so that you can understand where these stories were taking place, all right? So now, if y'all PTR, what you're going to see is we came in, and right above the Arnon River, this is the border of Moab. And then we came in and we started to go to war with them inside all of these different areas. And we conquered this portion of the land, you understand, from literally the Dead Sea to the border of Ammon. And this is the first portion of the land that Israel conquered. Keep reading.
Khan. Verse 25. And Israel took all these cities, and Israel dwelt in all the cities of the Amorites, in Heshbon, and in all the villages thereof.
You understand?
For
So you can see Heshbon, you understand, was to the east. You understand? And Heshbon is closer to the border of Ammon. So these are all the lands, areas, cities, and territories that Israel starts conquering. Read on.
Khan. For Heshbon was the city of Sihon, the king of the Amorites, who had fought against the former king of
Who
Moab.
had fought against the who?
Former king of
So
Moab.
now you see the plains of Moab, right? Is inside where the Amorites are. Because the Amorites and the Moabites went to war. And the Amorites shortened Moab's borders to the Arnon River. And that's why that land was known as the plains or country of Moab, because once upon a time it belonged to Moab. Read on.
And taken all his land out of his hand, even unto
You
Arnon.
understand? Even onto the Arnon River. So now you can see the new borders that were established. Good.
Verse 27. Wherefore they that Wherefore they that speak in Proverbs say, come into Heshbon, let the city of Sihon be built and prepared. For there is a fire going out of Heshbon, a flame from the city of Sihon. It hath consumed Ar of Moab, and the lords of the high places of Arnon.
You understand? So now it's talking about the history. It's talking about all the things that transpired before and after Israel gets into this land. Read on.
29. Woe to thee, Moab, thou art undone. O people of Chemosh, he hath given his sons that escaped, and his daughters into captivity unto Sihon, king of the Amorites.
You understand? So what you see here is that they destroyed Moab when they took this land, and they pushed them straight back into the Arnon River. All right. So this is a little bit of history about what happened before we got into the land and what happened while we were conquering it. So now let's go to Numbers 22 and verse 1.
Numbers chapter 22, verse 1. And the children of Israel set forward and pitched in the plains of Moab on this side of Jordan by Jericho.
So now this is extremely important. I want y'all to look at my PTR, right? Matter of fact, you know what? I'm going to zoom in a little bit, all right? I'm going to take a new picture for the PTR so you can see exactly where the plains of Moab is. Because remember, the story of Ruth was taking place in the plains of Moab during the time of Judges when a famine hit the land. So I'm going to take another picture so that this way y'all be able to see this. So now, if y'all can PTR, look where the Jordan River is, look where Jericho is, right? And then now look where the plains of Moab is. This is not in the land of Moab. This is kind of like I'm from New York, right? They're trying to rename Harlem Soha. Ain't nobody going to call it Soha. White people might call it Soha, but we still call it Harlem. Well, these were the plains of Moab during the time of the Amorites, and it was the plains of Moab during the time when Israel still conquered it. They didn't change the name of the land. You understand? It was called that because once upon a time it belonged to Moab. So that's how people recognized it. Yeah, I'll be in the plains of Moab because that's what it was called at that time period. And the name never changed. And if you see, that is nowhere near the land of Moab. It is actually near Jericho. And if you know about the story of Jericho, that's where we crossed the Jordan to go and conquer it. So we're going to get into some of that today as well. All right.
Hey, can I ask a question?
Who let Valen on stage? Valen, I'll talk to
Salah.
you later. You understand? And just so y'all know, Valen is a Christian who comes to combat. This is a class, Valen. So when I actually open up the floor to, like, you understand, to somebody like you understand, then you can come up. All right. But this is for people who actually want to sincerely learn. All right. This isn't so that you can challenge, so you can love white people or your white girlfriend. You understand? This is for people who actually want to learn the Bible today. So if you want to have contention or a debate, I'll open a room later. But this is my official class for New England, and you're not going to disrespect it. All right. So with that being said, make sure y'all paying attention to the map inside the PTR. And let's continue reading inside Numbers. So remember, we're in the plains of Moab on this side of the Jordan by Jericho. This is extremely important when you read the Bible. Get maps. Listen, get you a Zondervan Pictorial Bible Dictionary. And while you're reading, go look up the plains of Moab. Go look up Jordan. Go look up Jericho. Get an actual understanding of where everything's taking place. Look up maps. You understand? Like, bring the Bible to life. It is not a fairy tale. These are real people with real places that existed. All right. So now let's continue reading in Numbers 22.
Okay. Numbers chapter 22, verse 2. And Balak, the son of Zippor, saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites. And Moab was so afraid of the people because there were many. And Moab was distressed because of the children of Israel.
So now what you're witnessing here is that the king of Moab sees what was done to the Amorites, and now he starts to believe that the same thing will happen to him. And he gets scared as they see our armies. And the crazy part was when we came into the land so that this way we were asking peaceably. We asked for permission to go through. They sent their armies to fight us, and because we were serving the Lord, we destroyed them. All right. So now let's go to Deuteronomy, the second chapter, and let's start at verse 32. And this is going to get a little bit more into the story about the fight that happened at Jahaz.
Okay. Deuteronomy chapter verse 32. Give ear,
No,
O ye heathens. Oh,
Deuteronomy 2 and 32. That's where you're at.
oh, 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 2 and 32. All right,
All
so
right. No sweat. Don't sweat it. Once again, if anybody has a sincere question or whatever the case may be, this is a interactive class. So if you have any questions on the current subject matter, you could either type it into the chat or you could raise your hand. You could read it when you got it. Deuteronomy 2 and 32.
okay. Deuteronomy 2, chapter 32. I mean, chapter 2, verse 32. Then Sihon came out against us, he and all his people, to fight at Jahaz. And the Lord our God delivered him before us, and we smote him, and his sons, and all his people. And we took all his cities at that time, and utterly destroyed the men, and the women, and the little ones of every city. We left none to remain.
So what you see is when we actually came and took all his cities, when we took all this land from the Amorites, we destroyed the men, women, and children. That's what someone's little ones is. Don't sit here and think, you understand. I'm gonna mute you for now, Nathak. You
Salakia.
understand your background, no sweat, your background's a little loud. But don't sit here and think that like listen, the Lord is a man of war. You understand? Get the fairy tales out your head of this, strictly benevolent being. Men, women, and children were destroyed when we came through there. Once again, this is war. You understand? I know for sisters that's a hard pill to swallow and whatnot. And listen, maybe for some brothers that are still coming out the church, but you have to understand the spirit of Christ is a spirit of rulership. You understand? In order for you to get rulership, you have to conquer. And that's what we did. We conquered these lands and these people in totality. All right. So now let's go to, we destroyed all the heathen in the land of the Amorites. So now let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 3. And let's start at verse 1.
Deuteronomy chapter 3, verse 1. Then we turned and went up the way to Bashan, and Og the king of Bashan came out against us, he and all his people, to battle at Edrei. And the Lord.
I don't know if it's just me. You sounded a little low.
Oh, Salaki, I think my finger was covering the mic. Salaki. Deuteronomy chapter 3, verse 1. Then we turned and went up the way to Bashan, and Og the king of Bashan came out against us, he and all his people, to battle at Edrei.
So now, when you go and you look, so now when you might have changed your setting because now there's an echo when you talk at the same time. So now when you go and you look at Bashan, Bashan is north. You understand of the Jabbok River. So you understand this is all the way now north in the territory. I'm gonna try to get another picture of the map. So this is above where that current land of the Amorites was, and now we went to battle another king of the Amorites. Read on.
Khan Adawan Khan. So the Lord our God delivered into our hands Og, also the king of Bashan. Oh, Salaki, I skipped down. Verse 2. And the Lord said unto me, fear him not, for I will deliver him and all his people.
Brother, I don't know if it's just me, but you're sounding very low right now. I don't know what you did, but you know what I'm saying? You're going to have to fix your mic. Nathak, could you pick up where he's at? Deuteronomy 3 and 2.
Come. Deuteronomy chapter 3, verse 2. And the Lord said unto me, fear him not, for I will deliver him, and all his people, and his land, into thy hand. And thou shalt do unto him as thou dost unto Sihon, king of the Amorites, which dwelt at Heshbon.
So now remember, Heshbon was that territory that was, you understand, right next to the borders of Ammon. So we conquered all of that. We conquered everything from the Jordan River all the way onto the borders of Ammon. And then now he's saying, listen, the same thing that you did to Sihon is the same thing that you're going to do to Og and Bashan. Don't fear anything. We're going to conquer these people as well. Read on.
So the Lord our God delivered into the hands of Og, Salakia, the king of Bashan, and all his people, and we smote him until none was left to him remaining.
You understand? So now Og also, the king of Bashan, he was smote until none of his people were remaining. We started to conquer all of these lands. Read on.
And we took all his cities. At that time there was not a city which we took not from them. 60 cities, all the region of Argob, the kingdom of Og and Bashan, all the cities were fenced, with high walls, gates, and bars, besides unwalled towns and great many.
So we took all of these lands. You understand? All of them, literally from the Arnon River all the way up to Mount Hernon. Read on.
Con. And we utterly destroyed them, as we did unto Sihon king of Heshbon, utterly destroying the men, women, and children of every city. But the cattle and the spoil of the cities we took for a prey to ourselves. And we took at the time out of the hand of the two kings of the Amorites the land that was on the side of Jordan, on this side Jordan, Salakia, from the river of Arnon unto Mount Hermon.
So now I want y'all to PTR again. Remember, the Arnon River was the border of Moab. We took that land all the way up into Bashan and Mount Hernon. And if you look on that map, you'll still see where the plains of Moab are, which was right on the other side of the Jordan, just east of Jericho. So now you're starting to see all the land that we started to conquer. All right. And remember, those plains of Moab that we conquered is now the land of Israel, and it stayed being called the plains of Moab. All right. So now let's drop that. This is all everything that we conquered. So now let's go into the inheritance that was divided up. Let's go to Numbers 32 and verse 1.
Numbers chapter 32, verse 1. Now the children of Reuben, the great Gad, had a very multitude of cattle. And when they saw the land of Jazer and the land of Gilead, Salakia, that behold, the place was a place for cattle. The children of Gad and the children of Reuben came and spake unto Moses.
Now here's what happens, right? So now Reuben and Gad, you understand, they had cattle and they saw these plains. Remember, this was the plains of Moab, the country of Moab. So now this was good for plains, this was good for agriculture. So they now come on to Moses and they're going to ask for their inheritance to be on this side of the Jordan. Read on.
And to Eleazar, the priest, and unto the princes of the congregation, saying, Atareth, and Dibon, and Zazer, and Namara, and Heshbon, and Eliah, and Shebon, and Nebo, and Beon, even the country which the Lord smote before a congregation of Israel, is a land for cattle, and thy servants have cattle.
You understand? So all those different lands that we were talking about, Heshbon, Jazer, all these lands that we took from the Amorites, they want this for their cattle, for their land. They want this to be the inheritance of these particular tribes in Israel. Read on.
Wherefore, said they, if we had found grace in thy sight, let this land be given unto thy servants for a possession, and bring us not over Jordan. And Moses said unto the children of Gad, and to the children of Reuben, shall your brethren go to war, and shall ye sit here? And
So now what happens is that they're asking Moses for this portion of the land. So Moses is saying, well, y'all gonna sit out in war? So they come to an agreement that you can have this land so long as when we go to conquer, you send your armies with us and you fight with your brothers. And that's amazing because like everything in this Bible is brotherhood. You know what I'm saying? Like what Moses said to them was so right in the spirit. Like, how are you going to fight and your brothers aren't? Or vice versa. How your brother's gonna fight and you won't. So they agree to send, you understand, their portion of their army into war to conquer the other portion of the land because Israel helped conquer their portion of the land. So once they come to this agreement, drop down to verse 19.
Con. Numbers 32, verse 19. For we will not inherit with them on yonder side Jordan or ford, because our inheritance is fallen to us on this side Jordan, eastward.
You understand? So east side of the Jordan. I'm going to take another picture again so that this way y'all be able to see it even clearer. But what I want you to do is drop down now to verse 33 and read that whole verse.
Con. Numbers chapter 32, verse 33. And Moses gave unto them, even to the children of Gad, to the children of Reuben, and unto half the tribe of Manasseh, the son of Joseph, the kingdom of Sihon, king of the Amorites, the kingdom of Og, king of Bashan, the land with the cities thereof and the coast, even the cities of the country around about. And the children of Gad built Dibon and Ataroth and Ara and Ataroth, Shopon and Jazer and Jabiah.
So now, so what I want y'all to do is I want y'all to see the map right now. This is all the land that Israel had conquered from the Arnon River all the way up to Mount Hermon. All right. So now this land right here is going to be divided between Manasseh, Gad, and Reuben. All right. So now what I want to do is remember when we started this class, right? We started off in the first verse of Ruth. And in the first verse of Ruth, it says, Now it came to pass in the days when judges ruled. So Ruth took place during the book of Judges. And it says that in the country of Moab, the country of Moab is the plains of Moab that is inside the now given inheritance of the land of Reuben that fell above the Arnon River and just east, you understand, of Jericho. All right. So now let's go to the book of Judges and let's go to Judges 11 and 4.
Salakia, sir.
Good?
Am I clear now?
Yeah, you're crystal clear.
I'm looking like right through it.
So we're in Judges 11 and 4. Got to be a little quicker than that, though. Got to make this fluid. We got a lot of reading to do, a lot of ground to cover. So let's make it happen.
Khan Adawan Khan. Judges, chapter 11, verse 4. And it came to pass in process of time that the children of Ammon made war against Israel. And it was so that when the children of Ammon made war against Israel, the elders of Gilead went to fetch Jephthah out of the land of Tob.
So Jephthah was a judge, you understand? So they went to grab him, you understand, in order to fight Ammon. Good?
And they said unto Jephthah, Come and be our captain, that we may fight with the children of Ammon.
So now they
And
want to
Jephthah,
make Jephthah their captain. Now it's funny because just a little bit of a background story. Jephthah's mother was the mother of a stranger. You understand? So they tried pushing him off to the side. And then what ended up happening was, you know what I'm saying, when they needed him, they brought him back. They made him a captain over the people. And then he came and fought the Ammonites for Israel. And he was a famous judge. Now remember, Ruth took place during the book of Judges. All right. All of this was taking place contemporary with each other. So once again, so Ruth took place after Moses. You understand? After they conquered these lands, after they divided the territories, after Joshua goes into, you understand, across the Jordan, destroys Jericho, and conquers the rest of the inheritance. So now this is hundreds of years after Moses, and we've already been established inside of our lands. But we're going to continue reading. Drop down to verse 12.
Verse 12. And Jephthah sent messengers unto the king of the children of Ammon, saying, What hast thou to do with me, that thou art come against me to fight in my land? And the king of the children of Ammon answered unto the messengers of Jephthah, Because Israel took away my land, when they came out of Egypt, from Arnon even unto Jabbok, and unto Jordan. Now therefore restore those lands again peaceably.
So now remember, those are the same lands that we conquered from the Amorites. So this Ammonite starts to get bold, and now he's lying, saying we took land from him. When the Lord commanded us that we were not allowed to go against Moab or Ammon, so we left their lands alone. So he's actually lying right now on what transpired because we just read about it in Deuteronomy. We just read about it in Numbers, the 21st and the 22nd chapter. We never touched their lands. Read on.
Count out of one kind. Verse 15. And said unto him, Thus saith Jephthah, Israel took not away the land of Moab, nor the land of the children of Ammon.
You
But
understand?
when,
So Israel never touched their lands. But like, remember what I told you earlier. The Amorites touched their lands, and we took their lands from the Amorites, but they were trying to charge us with it. But the Lord told us never to distress them in Deuteronomy 2 and 9. And the Most High said unto me, Distress not the Moabites, neither contend with them in battle. For I will not give thee of their land for a possession, because I have given Ar unto the children of Lot for a possession. So we never touched their land. So in Judges 11, read verse 26.
verse 26, while Israel dwelt in Heshbon and her towns, and in Aurora and her towns, and in all the cities that be along by the coast of Arnon, 300 years. Why therefore did ye not recover them within that time?
So meaning, so now Jephthah turns around and cuts them and says, Yo, we have been living in this land for 300 years. You mean to tell me it took you 300 years for you to start beefing with us over this land? So this king just got greedy. So now, remember, this book is taking place inside the inheritance of the land of Reuben. That was land that once upon a time, I'm going to keep reiterating this, that hopefully it clicks, that once upon a time had belonged to Moab, but the Amorites conquered them. Then we conquered the Amorites. So by the time we get to Ruth, we're looking at roughly anywhere between 1 to 300 to 400 years of time that have passed that Israel's already been settled into this land. So the idea and notion that Ruth is a what do you call it, a Moabite, is insane, because geographically this story took place inside of the land of Reuben, and chronologically it took place after they destroyed all the heathen in that land and had been living in there at least 300 years after Moses died. So now that we have some of that history, let's go back inside the book of Ruth and let's get a little bit more of an understanding. All right, so let's go back to Ruth chapter 1 and verse 1. Whoever got it, you can read it nice and loud.
Khan out of one Khan. Ruth chapter 1 verse 1. Now it came to pass in the days when judges ruled, that there was a famine in the land, and a certain man of Bethlehem, Judah, went to sojourn in the country of Moab.
So now remember,
He
the country of Moab is those plains of Moab. This is the same plains of Moab where Mount Moab was that Moses died, just on the other side of the Jordan near Jericho. This is the same place where Israel pitched their tents, the same place that became an inheritance for Manasseh, Gad, and Reuben because they never crossed the Jordan. There was a famine. So, what you do is you leave the city and go to the countryside, to the plains, where agriculture and food will be more in abundance. This was not the land of Moab. The land of Moab was the actual inheritance of Moab below Arnon. This was the country or the plains of Moab because it was nicknamed that because that's where they used to live. That was the name of that land. The Bible is very specific about how it quotes certain things. So if it would have said of Moab, or if it would have said the land of Moab, then yeah, that would have been that. But because it's talking about the country and the plains, this is talking about that portion that Israel conquered. So I'm going to give you another example of this, all right? Hold where you're at in Ruth. Now go to Numbers 33 and 50.
Numbers chapter 33. Salakia. Salakia. Numbers chapter 33, verse 50. And it reads, And the Lord spake unto Moses in the plains of Moab by Jordan near Jericho, saying,
So now, remember, this is extremely important. And he spoke unto Moses in the plains of Moab by Jordan and Jericho. What's another name for plains? The country. I want y'all to PTR real quick. Go and look where Jericho is. Go and look where the plains of Moab is. There is no way that this can be the land of Moab if it is near Jericho. Jericho is north of the Dead Sea. You understand? The Arnon River comes out of the Dead Sea and is the borders of Moab. This is miles away from what Moab is. So when we're talking about the story of Ruth, it's inside the land of Reuben's inheritance, outside of Jericho on the other side of the Jordan. Well, there's more scriptures like this. Let's go to Numbers 36 and 13. I'm going to get all the precepts because, like, this dies today. You understand? We have to stop loving heathens. You understand? It's so funny. I'm teaching this today because I was at camp in Times Square yesterday while the brother finds the scriptures, and there was some Asians giving away cleaning products. You understand? And one of them came over there and handed me a bag for free of cleaning products, and I said, man, somebody in Israel that's not in the UPK would have thought that was Ruth reincarnated. You understand? And I laughed for like 10 minutes after that. You know what I'm saying? But listen, a gift don't spoil our heart to corrupt us, to let us know Ruth was a sister. She was an Israelite. Remember, we started off this lesson with the Lord hath only dealt with the nation of Israel, of all the families of the earth. You understand? He showeth his word unto Jacob. Now he gonna make his word about a heathen? No, I don't think so. But let's read what we got.
Salakia. So what verse in 36?
We are 36 and 13.
Numbers chapter 36, verse 13. These are the commandments and the judgments which the Lord commanded by the hand of Moses unto the children of Israel in the plains of Moab
In the what?
by in the plains of Moab
So now remember, Ruth took place in the plains of Moab. And the plains of Moab are where?
by Jordan near Jericho.
Now go and PTR and look where the plains of Moab is. Look where Jericho is. Listen, and y'all don't have to, like, I took these maps literally when I typed in Israel's inheritance onto Israel, and they were highlighted and everything. You understand? And they have different variant forms of these maps and the inheritance that you'll be able to see where the plains of Moab is, where Jericho is, and to see that this took place in the land of Israel, in the plains of Moab by Jordan. Why is it also called the country of Moab? Because this is the countryside. That's where the plains are. So let's see if there's another precept concerning this. Let's go to Numbers 21 and 17. And once again, all you need is a little bit of geography. All you need is a map. Read the Bible with a map and a dictionary. Get you a Merriam-Webster's dictionary, one of the old ones, because those definitions are a little honest. Get you a Zondervan pictorial Bible dictionary so you can get it from a biblical standpoint, and then get you some ancient maps of Israel before we took it, after we took it, before the split, after the split, and that this way you'll actually be able to see geographically where these stories are taking place. So we're at Numbers 21 and 17.
Numbers chapter 21, verse 17. Then Israel sang this song: Spring up, O well, sing ye unto it. The princes dig the well, the nobles of the people dig it. By the directions of the lawgiver with their staves, and from the wilderness they went to Mattanah, and from Mattanah to Nahalil, and from Nahalil to Bamath, and from Bamath in the valley that is in the country of Moab.
The what?
The country of Moab.
Bamath in the valley is the country of Moab. I want y'all to PTR one more time, and I want y'all to look at this picture and go look where Bamath is. Bamath is just east of Jericho, and that is the plains of Moab. So that's right outside the Dead Sea, on the other side of the Jordan, just below the Jabbok River. This took place in the land of Israel. I'm gonna give y'all one more precept. Give me Deuteronomy 34 and verse 8. And now you're gonna see that this is the same land where Moses died. Remember, Moses never entered into the promised land. He never crossed the Jordan, because the Lord gave that as a punishment when he smote the rock twice. And don't let the Christian church, you understand, brainwash you into thinking it was because he hit the rock twice. It was because he said, must we go and get this water for you? Moses started to think that it was about him. He took the credit for himself instead of giving the glory on to the Lord. And as a result, because he decided to take the Lord's glory, he did not make it into the promised land. He did not make it into the kingdom at that time. Instead, he died on the other side of the Jordan. And where was that? In the plains of Moab. And where was the plains of Moab? In Bamath, in the land of Reuben, because they just got done conquering it from the Amorites, who took it from the Moabites. So this is Deuteronomy 34 and 8. Read that for me, Baba Kasha.
Deuteronomy chapter 34, verse 8. And the children of Israel wept for Moses in the plains of Moab
In
30 days. In the plains of Moab.
And what we have been reading in Numbers 21 and 17, in Numbers 33, in Numbers 36, is that the plains of Moab, the country of Moab, this quote unquote land of Moab, was by Jordan near Jericho in the valley of Bamath, which all of this takes place in the land of Israel. So now that we understand when and where the book of Ruth took place, once again, let's go back to Ruth, the first chapter. Let's go to Ruth 1 and 1 again.
Ruth chapter 1, verse 1. Now it came to pass in the days when the judges ruled that there was a famine in the land, and a certain man of Bethlehem, Judah, went to sojourn in the country of Moab.
So now this country of Moab was where? This country of Moab was in the plains of Moab in Bamoth on the other side of Jericho in the land of Reuben. And they went there because there was a famine. Because that's what you do. You leave a rural area and you go to the countryside. So now drop down to verse 4.
Verse 4. And they took them wives of the women of Moab. The name of the one was Orpah, and the name of the other Ruth. And they dwelt there about 10 years.
Now, this is extremely important as well, right? Because it says woman of Moab. What you have to understand is that, like, I'm from New York. So people might call me a New Yorker because this is the demographic in where I live. Well, it was the same thing because they lived in the plains of Moab. They called them women of Moab. Now, this is extremely important because remember, they didn't call them daughters of Moab. That would be a Moabite. You understand? Would be a daughter of Moab. And the Bible is very strict with this all throughout the translations. I'm going to give you an example, right? Let's go to Matthew's the 15th chapter real quick, right? And this is where I see a lot of people going off as well. So like they see a woman of Canaan and they automatically think that this woman was a Canaanite, was a Hamite who was going to be saved from Christ and all these other things because it's Christianity is just trying to save heathens. That's all Christianity is. Christianity is love the heathens, save the heathens, and don't give a damn about your people. All right. So let's go to Matthew's 15 and 22.
Matthew chapter 15, verse 22. And behold, a woman of Canaan came out of the same coast and cried unto him, saying, Have mercy on me, O Lord, thou son of David. My daughter is grievously vexed with the devil.
You understand? So now this woman, it said she was a woman of Canaan. It didn't say that she was a Canaanite. You understand? Her daughter was grievously vexed with the devil. Well, this story was told also in Mark, and Mark got a little bit more specific with who or what her race or identity was. Because when someone is of a land, it just means they're from there. I'm of New York. I'm of America, but I am an Israelite of the tribe of Ephraim. You understand? That is my nationality. That is my race. That is my true ethnicity. You understand? This is just my citizenship and where I dwell right now. That doesn't make up my entire identity ethnically. You understand? Racially. So now let's go to Mark 7 and verse 25. And what you're going to see is this is the same story, but it's going to get a little bit more into what nation she actually came from. She was not a Canaanite. She wasn't a daughter of Canaan. She was of Canaan. She just dwelt in the land. That's all. She just lived there. Read when you got it.
Count out of one kind. Mark chapter 7, verse 25. For a certain woman whose young daughter had an unclean spirit, heard of him and came and fell at his feet. The woman was a Greek, a Sarah,
A
a,
Greek. Now, once again, Greek is like being an American. Usually that word Greek will be Helen, but it's going to take it a step further. Read on.
a Syrophoenician by nation.
So this woman of Canaan was actually Greek, and she was a Syro-Phoenician. And when you do the history, Syro-Phoenicians are Edomites. So when you see somebody is of a land, it doesn't make them a descendant of that person. This is slang inside the Bible because we called people by where they were from. This is why Elijah was a Tishbite. This is why Uriah was a Hittite. And this is why Ruth was a woman of Moab, because she lived in the plains of Moab, the country of Moab that was inside the land of Israel. And you were called by where you came from. All right. We got a couple of other things to get into. And once again, like you can look on a million maps. I'm gonna take a picture of another map here, right? And then PTR it. Give me 1 second here.
Salaki, sir.
Good.
We have a question in the chat. A gentleman by Levi said, "Who was Ruth's father and what tribe she was from?"
Okay. It doesn't say who her father was or what tribe, but we do know geographically that she would be from that she would be living in the land of Reuben. You know what I'm saying? So now I can't teach you what tribe she was from because it doesn't say it. But this is what I can teach you. We were inside of that land, conquered it, destroyed all the heathens, and were there for hundreds of years during the book of Judges when this was being written. Ruth is an Israelite. That's why she has a book in the Bible. So now we could assume that she's from the tribe of Reuben because she's in the plains of Moab. So now, once again, I just PTR'd another photo, another map, and you can see directly where the plains of Moab was right outside of Jericho. And this was inside the land of Reuben. So it's safe to assume she was from the tribe of Reuben, but I won't tell you that because it doesn't say that. All right.
Count out on count.
All right. Now we're going to continue on. Boom, boom, boom. So there is, once again, there's a direct distinction between a daughter of Moab and the woman of Moab. You know what I'm saying? I'll give you another example. Go to Isaiah 16 and 2. And once again, like the Strongs is not the absolute authority, but even if you go and you look up woman of Moab and you look up daughter of Moab, one is going to just say inhabitant of the land and the other one is going to say a direct descendant. You can literally tell the difference between the two because being of a land is not the same as being of the people. Read it when you got it.
Count out on one count. Isaiah chapter 16, verse 2. For it shall be that as a wandering bird cast out of the nest, so the daughters of Moab shall be at the fords of Arnon.
You understand that the daughters of Moab shall be at the fords of Arnon. Why? Because Arnon was their cutoff for the borders of that country. And now these are the actual daughters of Moab because these are the Moabites. This is their children. This is who they're directly related to. All right. So now, any questions so far before we move forward? If y'all got them, you could type them into the chat. If y'all want to raise your hand and come up on stage, that's fine as well. This is supposed to be an interactive class. Let me know if you're confused on any of the subject matter that we've gone over so far. I'll give y'all a second.
Salakia, sir.
Uh-huh.
By any chance, all these maps, can you send to me by any chance, sir?
Yeah, no, for sure.
What's the one?
And again, like I said, you can Google them. Like if you type in the plains of Moab, these maps are going to come up on Google. Like this is not, hidden information. You just have to search biblical geography.
Count out on one count.
All right, I'm gonna give it another second. All right, so let's go back to Ruth. Let's go to Ruth 1 and 8.
Ruth chapter 1, verse 8. And Naomi said unto her two daughters in law, Go, return each to her mother's house. The Lord deal kindly with you, as ye have dealt with the dead and with me.
Go
And the
ahead.
Lord grant you that ye may find rest, each of you in the house of her husband. Then she kissed them, and they lifted up their voice and wept.
Go ahead.
And they said unto her, surely we will return with thee unto thy people.
So now, remember, the children of Israel, right? They had different inheritances, right? So all this is saying is that we're going back to the land of Judah. People read this inside of the book of Ruth and utilize it to say that they're going on to a completely different set of people. The tribes were broken up by lands of inheritance. So when you read verse 7, it says, wherefore she set forth out of the place she was, and her two daughter-in-laws with her, and they went to return to the land of Judah, because in this book it was taking place in the land of Reuben. Now they're getting ready to travel and go back to the land of Judah. This was two separate lands with two different people with two different inheritances, meaning these were separate tribes. You know what I'm saying? There's certain levels of context, man. You know what I'm saying, that we have to understand when we're reading these scriptures. You have to understand that when we were inside of Israel, everything was broken up. So a stranger was somebody who was from a different set of land, an Israelite that you didn't know. You have certain strangers in certain contexts, which is a heathen. That's the heathen or the stranger that you can give usury to, which is interest. If you were to give a loan out to an Israelite, if you gave him $500, you can only get $500 back. But to a heathen, to a stranger that's a heathen, if you give him $500, you can get 1,000 back, 2,000 back, because we weren't allowed to enslave our brothers and sisters. But the stranger that fell in decay, though he be your brother, that's who you treated as your brother, as your family, even though you didn't know him directly. All right. So now let's go, and I just want to break down a couple of things in this story that people, you know what I'm saying, completely butcher. All right. All right. Let's go to Ruth 1 and 16 real quick.
Ruth chapter 1, verse 16. And Ruth said, entreat me not to leave thee, or to return from following after thee. For whither thou goest, I will go, and where thou lodgest, I will lodge. Thy people shall be my people, and thy God my God.
So now this is extremely important, because when did the book of Ruth take place? They already had the same God. This took place during the time of Judges. So now there's two things that we have to know. One, go to Deuteronomy 16 and 18. And then after that, we'll get into a couple of other misconceptions, and then we'll close out, you understand, with the law of the kinsman. And then if anybody has any other questions, we'll take it from there. But once again, just knowing the geography lets you know she was an Israelite. It's really ridiculous. And most people haven't put these pieces together because they haven't done the history. They haven't gone and seen how we conquered Israel. They don't look at maps and see where stories take place.
Come out of one come.
Read what you got.
Deuteronomy chapter 16, verse 18. Judges and officers shalt thou make thee in all thy gates, which the Lord thy God giveth thee throughout thy tribes, and they shall judge the people with his judgment.
You understand, with just judgment. You understand, because this took place during the book of Judges. And every tribe had different judges at each one of the gates. But there's something else that these judges were called. Give me Exodus 22 and 28. Because remember, in the first chapter, they just decided that they're going back to the land of Judah. You understand? They're inside the land of Reuben, and now they're traveling back to the land of Judah. Exodus 22 and 28.
Come out of one come. Exodus chapter 22, verse 28. Thou shalt not revel with God, nor curse the ruler of thy people.
Thou shalt not revile the gods. So now what gods are we talking about here? You understand? This is talking about what the Jewish man calls Elohim, we call the Alahayim, because those are judges, rulers, or authorities. There were judges and officers in all the gates of Israel. So there was different gods or judges inside of Reuben that there would have been inside of Judah, because every tribe had their own officers and judges in each one of these land, their own elders. And the Bible says you don't revile the gods, nor curse the ruler of thy people. So when you see Ruth talking about your people are my people and your God is my God, it's not even talking about the Most High. It's talking about the judges that they would be going into the land. She's saying, I'm going to come back to the land with you. Whatever y'all do in Judah, I'm doing in Judah. So now, what else is something that everybody messes up? Um, we'll just fast forward to the law of kinsman because at this part, like it starts to feel like overkill. You know what I'm saying? But let's just go to boom boom boom. Let's just go to Ruth chapter 2 and 6.
Khan Adawan Khan.
You know what? Fast forward. Let's just get straight to the law. Just to show this. Let's go to Numbers 27 and 8.
Numbers, chapter 27, verse 8. And thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel, saying, if a man die and have no son, then ye shall cause his inheritance to pass unto his daughter.
Good.
And if he have no daughter, then ye shall give his inheritance unto his brethren.
Good.
And if he have no brethren, then ye shall give his inheritance unto his father's brethren.
Good.
And if his father have no brethren, then ye shall give his inheritance unto his kinsman that is next to him of his family, and he shall possess it, and it shall be unto the children of Israel a statute of judgment, as the Lord commanded Moses.
So now this was one of the laws of kinsmen that was set up for inheritance. So now this is extremely important because Boaz goes to marry Ruth, but he turns around and he realizes that there might be somebody closer inside the family who might want to marry her. But Ruth was in debt, and anybody who was going to take on this woman would take on her family's debt and they had to clear it. So these same family members that might have been closer weren't willing to take on the burden that came along with Ruth. The entire book of Ruth, the purpose of why it was written was literally because one, this did become one of the most, you understand, this is a grandmother and grandfather to, you understand, a patriarchy inside of Israel. You understand, Obed, Jesse, David, Solomon, all the way on down to Yahushua. So this is a famous story inside the nation of Israel, but the reason being was because of the inheritance. That's the whole point of the story of Ruth, is this inheritance that was transferred over. So now read Ruth chapter 3 and verse 12.
Khan Adawan Khan. Ruth, chapter 3, and verse 12. And now it is true that I am thy near kinsman. Howbeit there is a kinsman nearer than I.
So now one, your kinsman is your family. Why would this law apply to a heathen? Why would he even care? First of all, why would he care about keeping this law and then go sleep with a heathen if it was against the law to sleep with a heathen? So you mean to tell me a man who's this zealous of the law, that he's trying to practice the law of kinsmen, is going to practice this law that only applies to an Israelite to a heathen and then break the law to sleep with a heathen? That don't make no damn sense. Read on.
Count out on time. Verse 13. Tarry this night, and it shall be in the morning that if he will perform unto thee the part of a kinsman, well, let him do the kinsman's part. But if he will not do the part of a kinsman to thee, then will I do the part of a kinsman to thee. As the Lord liveth, lie down until the morning.
Because the law of the kinsman was a law for Israel, because it shall be unto the children of Israel a statute of judgment as the Lord commanded Moses. So he's now practicing this law of kinsman for inheritance to see if there's somebody closer to marry this woman because she was an Israelite. The law of kinsman is for family. So if he was such a zealot like this, why would he marry a Moabite? Deuteronomy 23 and 3 says, an Ammonite or a Moabite shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord, even into their 10th generation. This law that he's applying wouldn't even apply to her. And it would be a sin, according to Deuteronomy, to even sleep with her. And then on top of that, how then did Jesse, Obed, or David enter into the congregation if they couldn't come into the fourth? It wouldn't make any sense at all. You understand? It's just people who's trying to love heathens. And then somehow they'll find this Moabite and find a way to save Esau. When everything in this book, everything inside this story is all pointing towards Ruth being an Israelite. From the fact that they're keeping the law, from the fact that they're bringing them back into Judah, from the fact you understand that they're willing to marry, from the geographical location to where the story takes place. Do not let anybody deceive you to try to love these heathens. Do not let a man who just wants to sleep with some Asian woman lie to you. You understand? Especially about concubines and whatnot. You understand? Your black ass is the concubine. You understand? Excuse my language, but straight up and down. You understand? You're a conquered people. Don't sit there and act like you like you like don't sit there and act like you now conquering somebody. You ain't burned down a town. You ain't kill her mother and father. You ain't shave her head. You ain't let her fingernails and hair grow back after a year of grieving her parents. You're conquered. But once again, they twist all of this just to love heathens, all right? I'm just trying to think if I missed anything else that people jam up inside the story of Ruth. The main part was the geography. Um, okay, boom. Okay, here's the last part that I want to go over then. So I'm just gonna read this real quick and then we'll get a couple of scriptures on it. This is Ruth chapter 2 and verse 10. So then she fell on her face and bowed herself to the ground and said to him, why have I found grace in thine eyes, that thou shouldest take knowledge of me, seeing I am a stranger? Don't let anybody tell you that the strangers are non-Israelites inside of this context. All right. So I'm gonna give you a couple of scriptures on this just to show you that strangers can also be Israelites. So if we go to, let's go to Psalm 69. All right. I'm gonna give you a couple of precepts on strangers, and then you have to bury these inside your soul for when anybody tries to confound or confuse you. Let's go to Psalm 69 and 8. Read that for me when you got it. Now, mind you, you understand this is to the chief musician upon Shoshanim, a psalm of David. You understand? So this is David speaking inside of this Psalm 69 and 8. Read it when you got it. You can hear me?
Oh,
Psalms
Salakia,
chapter.
I
Oh,
was
sorry.
muted. Oh, you can read it, Nathar.
Con. Psalms chapter 69, verse 8. I am become a stranger unto my brethren,
I am
and
what?
a stranger unto my brethren,
Good.
and an alien unto my mother's children.
You understand? You see this? This is King David calling himself a stranger and an alien because this was slang. When somebody did something wrong or off inside of Israel, if you missed the Passover, you understand, David at one point had committed adultery, you understand, with Bathsheba. And he, as a result, he felt as if he was a stranger to the commonwealth of Israel. You understand? A stranger would be an Israelite that you didn't know, or an Israelite who might have messed up and is now being treated like a heathen. So you have a stranger that you mistreat or that you exile, and you have a stranger that you treat like a brother. And that stranger that you treat like a brother is an Israelite that you don't know. Because you gotta even think about our culture. Like, I don't know about y'all, right? But in my hood, we were territorial coming up. We didn't own the neighborhood. We didn't own the park. New York State did, but it was our park. You understand? This was our little piece of territory. And if we didn't know you, you couldn't cut through the park at night. You get what I'm saying? It would be like, yo, who was this? You know what I'm saying? Like, in order to come to my neighborhood, you needed a pass. Somebody had to know you. And if they didn't know you, you were a stranger. And we did not have brotherhood. We didn't know about a law of stranger. We didn't know that we were supposed to treat people we didn't know with kindness. We didn't know that you might be entertaining an angel unaware. You understand? We didn't know that this person was our flesh, was our kin, was our brother. So when they came through, we robbed them. We took their money, we took their Jordans, we took whatever the hell they had, and they knew never to return again after this time. Because that's how we treated. You understand? Like, you can't just go somewhere random or to a random hood. Why? Because we don't have brotherhood. We don't know the law of stranger. A stranger is an Israelite that you do not know, and you are still to treat him like a brother, or it's an Israelite who is cut off from the commonwealth of Israelite that you treat like a heathen now because they broke the law, missed the Passover, or fall under some law statute that they broke. All right, I'm going to give you another precept real quick.
Salakia, sir.
Go ahead.
We have a brother I bought on the stage. I believe he has a question.
Yeah.
What's going on?
My question is this. First off, shalom to the panel. You know what I'm
Hey,
saying? All the kings and princesses of Israel, shalom. Yeah. Katazai, it's a two-part question. One is dealing with right now. Because I definitely subscribe to this breakdown right here. I believe that emphatically that Ruth is a Simeonite, right? I mean a Reubenite. But how do what would you use as a defense or to debunk? Because a lot of people, I just seen another video by another camp saying that because of how she was bought because she was bought. I do know the kinsman, the whole breakdown on the kinsman redeemer, and they were talking about this other camp was talking about how she was bought, so you can't buy Israelites. And I would go to uh Leviticus 25 and like 35 on down. But
well,
how
Le-
what
Le-
would you use?
Leviticus 25 and 35 is actually the next precept that I had up as far as someone who falls in poverty as a stranger with you. That's
Right,
one precept I would use, but she wasn't bought in the sense of like a servitude. Her debt
right.
was paid for because he who getteth a wife getteth what?
Possession.
A possession, because
Mm,
she belongs to you. And so does everything that she comes with. Ruth came with a debt. He
Con,
was willing to pay for her debt and clear her name so that this way she could be redeemed. That's what transferred inside of that story, right? And then this happens because remember, someone can fall in decay with you, and then what happens? They become your servant. So I'm gonna give you, hold
con.
on. I believe this is in Exodus. Give me 1 second just to find this. But that's an excellent question.
And I back chatted you. I'd like to get your whole if you have a link or something or somewhere I could go to get the your 12 tribe chart breakdown and all that too.
So no sweat. So now I got you. I'll send you that message. You know what I'm saying after class. So now
Uh,
this is Exodus 21:2. If
uh,
thou buy an Hebrew servant, I'm gonna read that again. If thou buy an Hebrew servant, 6 years he shall serve, and in the seventh he shall go out free for nothing, because we would have debt with one another. You know what I'm saying? And I'll even give you a recent example, right? There was two brothers doing electrical work, right? I do electrical work
okay.
and doing side work together. And one brother said to the other brother, he's like, man, you know what I'm saying? I got to get new tires. I can't even make it to the job. So he said, listen, I'll front you the money. You can fix your tires. You can come work and then just work off your debt on the job. So whatever he was going to pay him, he's going to take out for what he forwarded him for the tires, and whatever's left over, he gives it to him. You
Right,
understand? That brother became his servant for a moment. You understand?
right.
Like, well, this is something that free men do when you actually own a business, or when you own, you understand, land and property. So when you read Exodus 21, this is talking about laws when it comes down to servants or people who fall in debt with you or work under you. So when it talks about the buying, it's talking about he bought the debt that came with her and then he married her. Because you can buy a Hebrew servant. You understand? Meaning they're indebted to you, or you pay for their debt and they work it off through you, because that's what you do when you're a nation. We don't understand those things amongst each other because we're too busy doing it for the other nations. We don't know what it's like to be in
Mm.
power or rulership. But the Bible was written not for peons and not for servants and slaves, but for those who rule, so we would know how to rule over the people.
So that's basically indentured servitude. It's not actually a servant, but like you said, you're paying off a debt that you're just helping me out with because you got extra, and you're allowing me to go ahead and pay it off because Israel can't even charge Israel usury. So you just basically look. I got you. I got you.
You understand? And now that's the difference, because this is talking about a Hebrew servant, and these laws are going to be all broken down for your brother. These are all
Con,
going to be broken down for what you do with him. Now, somebody who's not your brother, the rules are different, because him you can charge usury. Because listen, in the seventh
con,
year, if he wasn't a Hebrew, you don't have to let him go.
con,
You understand? But in the seventh year, you forgive your brother of his debt, because we are not allowed to enslave each other. Now, that doesn't mean you don't pay your debts back, but there's a certain point where you even forgive a debt from a brother.
con. Appreciate you. Got it.
Nah, no sweat. So, with that, let's go to the next law on the stranger, which was, in fact, Leviticus. So, let's go to Leviticus 25 and 35. You can read that for me nice and loud.
Salakia. Leviticus chapter 25, verse 35. And if thy brother be waxen poor, and fallen in decay with thee, then thou shalt relieve him, yea, though he be a stranger or a sojourner, that he may live with thee.
You understand? You, if your brother becomes poor and falls into poverty among you, you shall help him. You understand? You go like this is when he falls in decay with you. You relieve him. You help him, though he be a stranger or a sojourner, that he may live with thee. This is your brother who falls into debt. Well, this woman was in debt because of her family. And that brother took on the burden. He married her, and everything she had became his possession, because he who getteth a wife getteth a possession. She's under your dominion, she's under your care. So that's exactly what transpired inside the book of Ruth. So when it's talking about bought and sold, it's talking about the debt that comes along with the person. It's not talking about making merchandise of that person. That's what you do to heathen. That's not what we do to each other. All right, we got any other questions on topic? I'm gonna check the chat real quick. Anybody else has a question in the room, you can go ahead and raise your hand.
Salaki, so Mordecai just came up to speak. I believe he has a question, sir.
Okay, no sweat. You got a question on topic?
Mordecai, we cannot hear you.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I'm
bro.
just wondering, how do you guys
You're
define
you're you're in,
the concept
you're
of
in the
stranger?
matrix, right?
Sorry, sorry. Can you hear me now? Is it better?
Yeah, it's way better.
Okay, I appreciate it. So, how do you guys define? I mean, how are you defining stranger?
Okay, so how long have you been in the room for, Mordecai? Because I've been breaking stranger down for the past 15 minutes.
I'm sorry, brother. I just jumped in and out a couple times.
Okay, no, no,
I didn't.
just making sure, right? So
Okay.
stranger has context. Okay, so depending on the context, a stranger could be another nation. It could be an Israelite who is now put off from the commonwealth of Israel because they broke a particular law, or it's an Israelite that you don't know or who has fallen into a low state or stature. You know what I'm saying? Now, depending on the context, it's going to let you know. So I gave examples of strangers, which are other nations. So, two laws that we find concerning a stranger who is not our brother is usury, or when an animal dies of itself. If you walk into a field and just one of your cattle is dead of its own that you did not slaughter, you cannot now butcher that animal and feed it to your brother who is an Israelite, but you can to a stranger. That's another nation. There's a stranger who you can charge usury to, which is interest. You cannot charge usury to an Israelite. And then there's a stranger who can fall into decay or to debt with you that is your brother. So the example is Leviticus 25 and 35. And if thy brother, your brother is the seed of your people, be waxen poor and fallen in decay with thee, falls in debt, then thou shalt relieve him, yea, though he be a stranger or a sojourner, that he may live with thee. Another law for strangers that's brotherhood is when you have a vineyard, you do not glean the corners or the borders of your vineyard, because that's for the strangers traveling, sojourning, and for the poor. That's a law of brotherhood. So the context will let you know if this is your brother or if this is a heathen.
Hmm. Okay, because the way I've been taught what a stranger is in Hebrew ger, there's two different types of ger. Gerim. One ger is a person who lives amongst the Bnei Israel, lives amongst the Israelites. And then there's another ger, which is a ger toshav, which is a ger that, no. I mean, you have a ger toshav, which is a person who lives amongst the camp, but is not a member of the camp. And then there's another ger, which is that's a ger toshav, and then another ger, a ger sadik, a righteous ger, which is a person who joins the Bnei Israel, the modern day Jewish people.
Well, I don't know who's modern day Jewish. I don't deal with Jewish people. I deal with Jews. All right. But the point being is that I'm showing you the context. Now, I mean, if you want to go to, you know what I'm saying, that variant of the Hebrew and use ger, you know what I'm saying, that's fine. But still contextually, that's going to apply to somebody who is your brother or not, depending on the context of the law. So you could have somebody who sojourns from another area. Remember, Israel had inheritances. So if somebody came from the land of Judah to the land of Reuben, he's a stranger in your land, but you treat him as a brother because he's still an Israelite. You know what I'm saying? So you do have strangers who sojourn that might be heathens. You understand? And like I said, there's a context in the law with how you deal with the heathen and how you deal with your brother. And I just gave you 2 to 3 examples of it.
I'm just more so curious. Do you, if you believe in the context that a person who's not a descendant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob can join the camp through a process, and that person will be considered a ger because they don't have necessarily a tribe coming from their father.
I mean, when you say join, they can join as far as there would be heathens inside the land there, but they're not considered, they're not first class citizens. They don't get the same rights or access that we have. They don't get inheritance. They don't come to the temple. They don't come to the Passover. They might be able to live or dwell in the land, and they would have to keep our customs because it's the rule of the land, but that does not make them a part of us.
Was Ruth considered a ger?
Okay, you should have got here in the beginning of class. I've been teaching on Ruth for 2 hours. So,
But this is a yes or no. Was Ruth considered
okay,
a ger?
here's what I need you to know, right? This isn't one of those rooms, my man. This is an actual structured class. She was
Okay, my bad, my bad, my bad,
no
my
no
bad.
sweat,
I
but
didn't.
here's what I need you to understand. She was a stranger, and before you got in and came up here confused, I was breaking down the context of stranger. For example, I went inside Ruth when she said, "I am a stranger." And then I was breaking down the scriptures and I went to Leviticus 25 and 35, and we have been going around. So you're late to the lesson. So what I would suggest you do is the
Mm.
replays are on. I would suggest you listen to this entire class, and I'm teaching this class every Sunday from 12 to 2, so that if you have a question, you'll be able to ask next week or whatever the case may be, because this class is over in 5 minutes and you've come extremely late.
Okay, no problem. I don't mean to disrupt anything. I just saw the title and I jumped in. I didn't know the timeline. I just was wondering if other people from other nations can join and become part of the nation, and and that's why I asked about Ruth. But it's okay. It's fine.
No sweat. Well, people can become, you understand, as far as part of the nation in the sense of you can live inside of it, but that does not make you an Israelite. There's no such thing as a spiritual Israelite. You can't change races. There's no transracial going on. So you can live in the land and you can learn the customs because you would have to. The same way if I went to China, I would be under Chinese rulership, whether it was imperialism, whatever the hell it would be. You understand? If I traveled back in time, I would be being ruled by the Song or Han dynasty. And whatever they said goes, goes. Well, it's the same thing inside the land of Israel when we're in rulership. You would have to follow the laws of the land. But there are still laws that don't apply to you because they're only for the Commonwealth of Israel and not for you. And I've given you definitive and distinctive differences between the strangers.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just saying that Ruth being a Moabite and King David being, part of, which she part of, like through succession, which she came through. King David is, a pretty big person. Shlomo, King
I,
Solomon.
I
I'm just
got
saying.
let me help you out with something. All right. And I'm just gonna do this as a recap, and then you can listen to the class, and this is a recap for anybody in here. The book of Ruth did not take place in the land of Moab as far as Moab's inheritance. It took place in the land of Reuben. What I went over inside class was how Israel had conquered the land of Israel, that we came around Edom, we went around Moab, and just outside the Arnon River, we then met with the Amorites and we made war with them, and we conquered everything from the Arnon River up to Mount Hernon. And it was at that point that Gad, Manasseh, and Reuben said that they wanted their inheritance to fall on this side of the Jordan. The plains of Moab were right outside of Jericho. So that was actually inside the land of Reuben, and the country or plains of Moab maintained the name even onto the day that Moses died. Because Moses did not cross the Jordan, but where he died was inside the plains of Moab. So Ruth took place inside those same plains of Moab during the book of Judges. So this was hundreds of years after Moses had actually died, and we established our borders of inheritance. So Ruth was not a Moabite. She was a woman of Moab, meaning she just dwelt in that land that once belonged to Moab, because the Amorites conquered it from Moab and we conquered it from the Amorites. So this is all the historical references that we went over today to show that Ruth was not a daughter of Moab, she was a woman of Moab, meaning that there is a biblical tradition of just calling somebody from the land that they come from. So she was not a heathen. And that's what I broke down for the last 2 hours. I advise you to check the replays so that maybe you could learn.
Thank you. I mean, I've learned differently, but I hear what you're saying, and it's interesting. Normally, when a person lives in another land, the Torah is very distinctive about identifying them as being part of Bnei Israel. But I hear what you're saying.
No sweat. Well, what I would do is, like I said, the replays are on. This class is being changed from Wednesday 7 to 9 p.m. to Sunday 12 to 2. And then, like I said, if you have a question, you know what I'm saying, write it down. You could bring it up next week. All right.
Appreciate it, brother. Thank you.
Hey, no sweat. All right. I'm going to check the chat just to see if anything else is going on. All right. So that concludes the lesson on Ruth. It's 2 p.m. Lord willing, I'll have everything fixed to be broadcasting on YouTube. I ran into some technical difficulties, so I'm gonna fix those. So this class is strictly going to be on Clubhouse today. Rakah, let's work on ripping this class off of Clubhouse and putting it onto YouTube so that this way this lesson can be there as well. Um, and then once again, every single Sunday, 12 to 2. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the house. And like I said, we'll be doing lessons like this every week. All right. So with that, shalom.
Not on time, sir.
All right.
And don't forget to subscribe to all things I.S.U.P.K. Boston, I.S.U.P.K. Connecticut. We on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Subscribe. Shalom.
Shalom.